This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, welcome to WCM's Park Update. I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine. My esteemed colleague Mike Gast, former Vice President of Communications of Campgrounds of America, is here. And our guest today is somebody that's probably getting more familiar with people. I know you're on another show. We aren't going to say the name here, but I know you're on another show, and that's been working out great for you. And then you used to own a park, and now, you sold the park a couple years ago, and now you're working with Camp Strategy. Greg Emmert is here. He's the co-founder of Camp Strategy with Jeff Hoffman, who is on the Ojai board of directors. So, two pretty big heavyweights in industry, I guess. You have your own consulting firm, right?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. I always like talking to you too. The conversation's great. So Jeff and I just started up. It's been kind of, slow rolling to start up, but we just got our website launched and everything, so it feels really official now. But Camp Strategy is Jeff and I sharing our knowledge and expertise from the combined over 80 years of experience we have in outdoor hospitality, and it's been a lot of fun. Starting to gain some momentum, and it's really interesting. Helping people out is obviously it's why we got into it. Sharing the knowledge and watching people succeed is just great.
That campground you used to own, I know was a KOA, so I like to take credit for you, Greg, and say that I helped educate you along the way.
You did, Mike. I can remember coming to convention and seeing you stand around and go, "Nobody sends me news releases. Do you not know how much press I can send you?" And my wife does that she works for the state of Ohio as an information officer, so she sends news releases and does media release. And I would come home from conventions and she's like, "I feel his pain. Nobody tells me anything. I find out a week later, and then I try to put out a news release, and it doesn't do any good." But yes, Mike, you played a big part. Big checkbox for Mike.
There,
absolutely.
I'm all done, Ben. I can get here and sit and glow the rest of the hour.
Yeah. So Greg, I think we had you on before, and you were launching your own consulting firm, and I know Jeff Hoffman had launched his consulting firm, and I believe we chatted with him as well, or we did an article for him in the magazine at least. And then you guys just were like, "Hey, we both live in the same state. Maybe we should just combine." Is that kind of what happened, or?
Yeah, Jeff is the genesis for it. He recognized the really complementary skill sets that we have. Me being very operational heavy, him being very finance heavy. Obviously, we have lots of crossover, but we can both speak to different parts of the operation. And so he's the one that recognized it and reached out. And so Jeff is definitely that's why he's the president. He's the guy that put it together. But it has worked out really well. I'd say he was absolutely right, because we can sort of speak to all sides, everything from even helping folks with due diligence if they're buying a park, but operations, finance, design, development, expansion. The two of us are able to handle just about everything an owner, operator, or institutional buyer would come up against.
Yeah. So do you sign on with the campground early on in the process and stay with them forever, or does it depend on the client?
It really depends on the client, Mike. But honestly, our plan from the beginning was never to, not to say we wouldn't welcome a client who said, "Hey, we'd like to put you on like a 3-year retainer and keep you with us as we grow our portfolio," or something. That would be wonderful. But the plan from the beginning, because there's two of us and because there are some really big hitters in this space, I mean, there are already some really big firms that have lots of people working for them. Our plan was sort of to find those smaller parks that those big players maybe wouldn't want to take on. Their gross receipts aren't high enough, or they don't have enough properties for them to third party manage, which is something that we don't do. But what we found is that a lot of those big companies get calls from smaller folks. So we've been sort of partnering with the bigger companies, and they've been sending us their, quote unquote, smaller fish. And that's really where we have the most impact anyway, especially like family, mom and pops. That's what I did, right? I lived 26 years of owner operation right alongside my parents. So all that family dynamic that makes things so difficult sometimes. And, we're just working with your family's tough. I mean, if anybody's ever done it, I'm sure there are people out there watching right now going, yeah, I know. I'd really like to get rid of Susie. But I can't. She's a blood relative. There's that kind of stuff. Like I can speak to that, and so can Jeff. And so that's really what we're shooting for is smaller clients. We get in for a few months or a year, educate them, fly little birdie, get off the nest. Oh my gosh. And it feels so good to send them out into the wild and then move on to the next client. That's kind of what we're modeled around.
Are you seeing a real shift? We have a new generation of small owners out there. Is it there've been a lot of sales in the last 5 years?
Yeah, a lot. And the way the valuations have been, honestly, a lot of those sales kind of scare us. I feel like there are some folks in a few years that are really going to need some help because they bought at that initial post-COVID valuation when parks were selling for 7.5 to 8.5 cap, and now money costs 8.5%. So if you buy something at an 8.5% markup, you really didn't buy an investment. You bought a really bad paying job. Now you're going to have to work. You bought a park that maybe you were planning on making 8.5 on, and now you owe the bank 8.5. So you're at a wash. And I really hope I'm wrong about that part, but I feel like there are some folks that are going to be struggling in the next few years. And that's obviously not what we want to see. But yeah, we have tried to get in earlier. We try to make the case to folks that are obviously the biggest value we can bring to you is when you're looking at that park, you're in due diligence, you're starting to dig in. Let us come in and really look at those financials, because the way some of the brokers underwrite them, I don't want to say it's disingenuous, but it's not. It's it might be pie in the sky, and we want you to have some really realistic figures to put together so you know what you can base your income on, what you can take to the bank to try to get that financing, and then boots on the ground kind of stuff. We've seen a lot in that much time. We typically know where a previous owner maybe buried the bodies, right? Where they cut corners and where you're going to find all those big costs that you didn't know were underneath that rug. You just didn't know to lift it. We try to get in very early with folks, but unfortunately, humans were a reactive species so much of the time, and rather than to be proactive, we get the call after that happens. And not that we still can't help folks, it's just a longer and usually more costly path.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at your website. You guys offer a variety of different types of services. Do you guys I know we've talked third-party management, but that isn't kind of what you guys do, right? Would you help people find third-party management groups, I guess?
Yeah, we certainly have firms that we would refer people to. And again, those companies are typically basing whether or not they pick a property up on its top line number, right? So what are your gross sales? Because if that's not a big enough number, then you can't afford to pay that third party management company that 5 to maybe as high as 11% of that top line to manage your park. So we have a few different firms that we've worked with and partnered with that manage different size parks. And then there are times we'll just advise somebody that, your park is too small. If you try to send this out to third party management, there's going to either be nothing left for you, or you're going to be leveraged so hard because you're paying the management company, then you have to pay the manager, as opposed to maybe it needs to be an owner operator. Some folks don't want to hear that. They bought a park thinking it's going to print money and they can just hand it off. And you look at it for them and you go, geez, guys, I don't know if you knew this, but a 50 site park, that's really hard to get third party management on unless, your average daily rate on those sites is crazy high and you're at 100% occupancy. That's going to be a tough one. So you may need to buckle down and roll up your sleeves and put on the 700 hats and just run this thing for a few years. But yeah, we definitely partner with third party because it's not something that we are capable of providing right now. We may look at it in the future, but we really enjoy helping people get to that point where they're ready to fly on their own and then, take off on their own. That's kind of the goal.
What about on I think part of starting a business, doing that kind of stuff is obviously the marketing component. What do you guys do anything on that marketing front, or is that another area where you kind of guide them to where they need to go on that end, I guess?
Yeah, it's the same for us. We have some experience in marketing,
Mm,
but I would say that one of our strong suits is knowing what we don't know. And
yeah.
we certainly are not going to try to put somebody under contract for something that um, we can do a low end job of when we could refer them to somebody where they could get some really high end work. So yeah, typically marketing, we outsource that as well. And again, we have a few really solid industry contacts that we trust and perform sort of the same set of services, but in a different way. You know, each client is different. They have different personalities, and so maybe we're not going to take client A to marketing person B because we know there might be some conflicts there about how they work. But yeah, that is another outsource. It's just so, gosh, it's so big. I
Yeah.
used to say that's one of the reasons that we joined KOA when I still owned a park is because sales. I'm a good salesman. If you get the woman in the white gloves to my campground, I can have her with 6 ketchup popsicles. That's easy, right? I can sell. But marketing is what brings her to the campground in the first place. And I was terrible at that. We joined KOA and things drastically changed for us thanks to the hard work of folks like Mike. Drastically changed for us. I did not realize the difference between sales and marketing. I have a much better grasp on that now. And yeah, it's not something that we get into. We're happy to outsource that.
Yeah.
What are you seeing on rate management? I know that was always a hot button at KOA. Are parks charging enough out there now?
Mike, that is, as you would expect, that is all over the board. We see some folks that want to try to, rather than, and this is something I learned from KOA, rather than driving occupancy, they are trying to make up that dollar amount by driving their rates up. And, if you see rates doing this and occupancy doing that, you are probably circling the bowl. Time to call someone like Jeff and I. That's not a good sign. You want them doing this together, right? You need occupancy doing this and rates doing this. Otherwise, you're not growing. You're just sort of hanging on. You're clinging to the edge. You cannot make it up with rates. It has to be done through occupancy. So it's really all over the place. And I'm a member of a bunch of different RV park owner and manager forums, like on social media, and I'll see everything from, messages saying, I don't want to charge more than $35 a night because I want to be affordable to people, even though I've got all these full hookup sites, to the other end of, how much can I charge? And even, my occupancy's falling. So I need to really take my rates up to make that different. It's really all across the board, but it definitely is something that obviously the more educated the owner operator, the more that they see how important managing those rates along with the occupancy is. So we see that typically more the rates being too low with mom and pop and individual operators because they have sometimes they have a bit more empathy than somebody who owns 200 parks and has a board of directors and investors that they have to keep happy. But it's not to say that those type of systems are overcharging either. They've just gotten really, really good at managing their rates and their revenues. And that's where Jeff is so good at that. I've never seen somebody get so happy over numbers on a screen or an Excel sheet. Jeff is like a kid. He looks like he's 8 years old and he just saw some Disney wrapping paper under the Christmas tree. And he's so excited. So he loves doing that and he's really, really good at it. Especially having that background in hotels as well as RV parks. As you know, hotels have been doing dynamic pricing and rate management for ages. You look at the same hotel room and it's one price on Monday, another one on Wednesday, another one on Thursday, another one on Saturday, a different one on Sunday, different even the next week because they track their occupancy and their historical records so well. So more and more parks are doing that. Definitely the PMS systems out there are making it a lot easier. But still a lot of folks out there that think that they somehow, for some reason, they feel really obligated to make their place cheap. I wouldn't even say a higher value. They just want to make it cheap for folks, which is, I admire that, but don't forget about number one. You've got to pay your bills, pay your staff. You can't forget about that. And if you're not getting what you can from an investment, you're really not taking care of yourself or your staff. So I hate to see it happen, and sometimes it's hard to talk folks out of. It's difficult to change their perspective on it.
Yeah.
So how big a part of your business is picking out the right amenities for folks? I know that there's a lot of investment being made even in accommodations, but when people are looking for an experience, how do you help them pick the right thing?
Yeah, that's really it. And that's one of the things that I enjoy doing most is getting my feet on the ground at a property and figuring out that X factor, right? Because that's what you have to play to. You can't too often we see people go, I'm going to buy this land, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going to build this place, and people are going to come and stay at all these short-term sites and nights. And I don't know if it's going to happen for you. Do you have anything around to draw from? Do you have an attraction? Like what is your unique offering? Everybody has one, but not everybody identifies it well. So yeah, we get into that quite a bit actually, and sometimes it's a struggle. We have a client here close to us that the next shiny thing is like holy cow, and it's just they're always sort of chasing it, and you really need to find what is your why first of all, right? And then who are we? What are we? What I use the metaphor all the time. What flavor are we? Are we going to be, if we're going to be strawberry, we need to be strawberry. The guy down the street can be chocolate. That person over there can be vanilla, but we really need to figure out what strawberry is, how we're going to define it. And yeah, do we need, are we a high-end luxury place? Do we need a pool and a splash pad and all these activities? Or are we very close to lots of things people can leave the park and go do? Well, then maybe we don't need a really amenity heavy park. And we do see a lot of people spending kind of the wrong direction. People look out and they see parks like KOAs, right? And they're like, well, clearly we need a bounce pad and we need a pool and we need a mini golf course and that might not be the case. You might have to build an amenity rich park. You might need to build yourself into an attraction depending on where you're at. But if you're not that type of park, you really want to be focused, because obviously CapEx money is tough to come by and expensive to spend. You want to make sure you get those amenities and the layout especially just right, so that you use the word experience. That's what it's all about. You've got to have that guest experience really tailored to who you are and what you do.
Supercharge your campground bookings with Spot Tonight, the #1 commission-free OTA for RV parks and campgrounds. Through integrations with top property management systems, Spot Tonight displays real-time outdoor accommodation inventory with a marketplace where campers can search for and instantly book campsites. Best of all, it's 100% free for operators. Visit partners.spottonight.com to get listed and unlock access to over 60 million campers.
Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, and we are chatting with Greg Emmert, the co-founder of Camp Strategy, along with Jeff Hoffman. You guys are both located in Ohio, so that's been a good fit for you guys, I guess. Do you guys do you guys go to a lot of the same shows together, or do you guys kind of separate and conquer that way, or?
We have so far been attending them together. We did Ojai, Campground Owners Expo in Branson. Jeff is in, and then after that, we sort of split. Jeff is in Florida. I know he went to Florida Alabama show as well as some board meetings. And then we'll be at the Ohio Campground Owners Association first weekend in March at their trade show, and then a smattering of sort of divide and conquers after that. I think the Carolinas might be in May, and a couple other shows. But yeah, so it kind of depends. We travel together. Jeff gets tired of me, and then he says, "Go do this one by yourself." Okay, and so we split. But yeah, it's kind of a mix of both.
Yeah, I mean, just we were talking a little bit before the break about just like amenities, different things that you help park owners with, developing those kind of strategies to what's going to work best with their park. I know you guys also do staff and management training, and I know park owners are struggling to even get staff, and I imagine some of them might have some turnover. I guess, do you guys, is that pretty high in demand right now, that staff training and bringing people in to kind of help get a parks team ready to go, I guess?
I'm very surprised that we don't get more calls about it. But I would say it's one of the least common things we're contacted about. And I don't know if that's a function of how park owners, and not park owners, just entrepreneurs, small business owners in general, you get too mired down working in the business, you don't get a chance to work on the business, right? So
Yeah.
maybe as an owner, you should be thinking more strategically, and you should probably be hiring people to put in place to do those menial tasks that are maybe taking up all your time. But like my dad, for instance, he was this way. We can't afford to hire someone. Well, but if it freed up our time, right? Our time is almost invaluable, right? It doesn't look that way when you look at what you're paying yourself as a small business owner, because typically you don't. But at least we didn't. Ours was all invested back into the property. We paid ourselves very little. So it feels like you don't have that money maybe to pay somebody, but if you pay them, now you're freed up to do that strategic thinking and planning and working on it rather than in it. So I do see, honestly, most of the people that we see struggling are typically underemploying. Like they should be paying more people, but instead they're taking on those roles because they feel like I can just do it and knock it out, when there's tremendous value in hiring and training good staff members, building a culture among them, and then letting them get out and do their work, overseeing them, and then going back to working on your business, whether it be figuring out the next expansion or something. It's I see a lot of parks that are understaffed.
And then, I think you guys also mentioned exit planning. And I know that's something we've talked a little bit about on this show, how park owners need to kind of strategize how they're going to exit. And it can get pretty complicated, especially in a large family business. If you have a lot of family members, I guess, do you get a lot of requests on how to do that now? How do you tackle exit planning when you've got 3 or 4 family members who are all wanting maybe different things, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really that can be a tough conversation, and obviously a very personal one. If you've got a family that owns it, different family members involved, so you've got not just the financial and physical preparations for it and considerations, but you've got that family dynamic again. And so the conversation needs to be very, very measured, very careful. But we just like to see people thinking about it. If all they do is mention it and we can just start their wheels turning, we feel like that's a win. Then if we can get them to actually start planning for it, because, and again, I'm assuming it's this way with lots of small business owners, but I only really know this industry. It is, I mean, I don't even know what word I would use to describe it. It is so common to see people in their late 70s, 80s going, we're still running this park every single day and we don't know what to do with it. We never plan, we thought that Jimmy was going to take it over, and it turns out Jimmy went to college and he saw how hard we worked all these years and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And now what? And, so they didn't take a 3 to 5 year period to really get their books in order, to make sure that their title was clear, all the little things that aren't little when it comes time to sell it. And then you might get a letter of intent from somebody, you get into the due diligence period, they start asking you for numbers or for surveys, and all of a sudden you're like, I didn't know I needed any of this. I thought I was just going to have somebody sign a piece of paper and sell it off. I couldn't believe how hard I had to work because we didn't have an exit plan. My dad's retirement plan, we always joke, was expiration. We were going to go find him somewhere out on the property, and he would have passed away on the golf cart and been the happiest guy in the world. And we'd be like, oh, dad finally retired. It was health matters that pushed us to that. And that is so often the case as owners age, their health comes into play. And then all of a sudden, well, now we need to sell it, but we need to sell it now. And that's kind of what we got into. And the education that I got and the amount of work that I had to put in to get the park sold for them, it was, when I think back about it, I'm still surprised by how much work it was. So again, not a call that we get often enough, I think, but yeah, it does happen, and we're very happy to help people plan for that. Even if they think it's 10 years down the road, boy, if you're out there, if someone's listening right now and you think it might be 10 years down the road, start now. That 10 years is going to disappear before you know what happened.
I think.
So Greg, are you geographically limited? You take clients from all over the place, and when you get a client that's not real close to you, are you still boots on the ground? Do you go physically visit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've most everything right now has been east of the Mississippi. I've been to parks in the Carolinas, here in Ohio, Maryland, Indiana, Pennsylvania. Jeff's been to Alabama, Florida, Georgia. So most everything has been east of the Mississippi, but we've had some contacts in Texas. That might be our next. There might be a park there. And Jeff's got one that he's been speaking with actually all the way out in California on the Klamath River. But I think he's doing that selfishly because he wants to go salmon fishing. I don't know that there's actually, I think I need to do some DD on my own partner because I don't even know that there's a campground there. I think he's just trying to get like business funds to go on it. And if I find that out and I wasn't included, I'm going to be very upset because I would love to go catch some salmon.
So another question that I've got is, as you go through and you work with these parks, and some of them in a distressed state, do you ever feel like, oh, I could turn this one around myself? Do you ever want to get back into the business of ownership?
All the time. All the time. Like I don't know if you're reading my mind or something, but yeah, I have, I don't want to say secretly, but quietly, ever since we sold, been looking for one to reinvest in. And I've gone to look at a few parks. I've put in a few offers, but valuations, as far as I'm concerned, especially if it's a listed park, most of the parks that I see are not in a spot where I can make it a smart investment. So, but yeah, we've actually gotten close on a couple of them because there are, I would love to reinvest my takeaway from our sale. And I know the industry really well, but yeah, there are times where it's it's not what the client wants. They're not ready to sell. So I have to like mind my P's and Q's because I could kind of lead them down a road towards a sale if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that, right? I want to keep them there. But there are lots of, there have been several that I've looked at and been like, man, this one would be perfect. Call me back in 5 years when you are ready to sell it because this one looks great. It's perfect size, exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's been kind of difficult. There've been a couple of them that I kind of salivated over.
So I think we're deep enough into this interview. Would you ever go Jellystone? Do you want to wear the bear costume?
I will say two things. One, if anybody could wear that bear costume and make it good, it's me.
It's
100% me. However, no, I'm not going to wear the bear. I know it's a great franchise system, and we have some awesome Jellystones here in Ohio. Holy cow! Akron Canton Jellystone, their giant aquatics facility and stuff. I mean, and Hocking Hills Jellystone is another one. They're amazing parks, but no, I would. No, I wouldn't.
Now I want to see you in some sort of animal costume. So
I can make something up. I got something around here. I can dress up like a beaver if you give me a minute. I get like a canoe paddle and put it on my backside or something. I can make that happen.
Well, I think that's about all the time we had. It was great getting to catch up with you, Greg, and I'm sure I'll see you around at different shows. Maybe this spring, maybe in the fall. So always excited to hear what you and Jeff have to say about what's going on in the industry, and hopefully the consulting business keeps going well. I guess where can people find out more about Camp Strategy?
Yeah, so you can check out our website, campstrategy.com. Jeff Hoffman and I are both on LinkedIn. If you want to check out our profiles there, you can get more information both about us and Camp Strategy. Email me, greg@campstrategy.com. We'd love to talk about the industry, and those first initial conversations, people call us, the meter's not running on any of that. We like to talk to folks, see if we can help. If we can, we go from there, but it's just, we love to talk about the industry and help people. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I have issues with Excel sheets, so maybe I need to talk with Jeff more because it seems like he's really into those. So maybe he can help me out with my Excel sheet problems. So,
without question, he has a hard time saying no. So just reach out and be like, Jeff, look at this thing, and he won't be able to stop himself.
So well, it was great talking with you, Greg, and thanks for coming on the show. And thanks everyone for watching, and we will be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022 G&G Media Group.